On to the second video. I do hope you don't mind. Now for this one, let's talk about the Crusade for Liberty. Now when I say this, it should be noted that no, this is not a religious thing, though I can definitely understand the comparisons, especially to the actual Crusades. But that is not what I am referencing here specifically. It's more just an idea of a fight for something very important. And with that in mind, let us get into it. See, with the desire to establish an effective system of government in mind, liberty, specifically negative liberty, must be defended. After all, any action built with that idea in mind will result in a better government. Because think about it, it's a lot harder to manage a country when you have to constantly butt heads with your own people. Oppression is itself inefficient. It is not the best for the people. And so, negative liberty, or the freedom to choose, is something that must be defended, for it makes things far more efficient and effective. Think about it from the government's perspective. It's a lot easier to manage a territory and people when your people aren't actively butting heads with you over every little thing. And so, it's a lot easier to let them run free with only certain limits based on the idea of you're not going to hurt someone, and if you do, the state will punish you. However, so long as other states oppress their people, particularly if it is to a much greater scale, there will be a constant state of conflict. That conflict is war, and that war will necessarily affect others. And this is not an efficient way for any government, and so it should be ended, especially because there's an opportunity cost. If the state spends all of its resources oppressing its own people, then guess what? It simultaneously is not spending that maintaining infrastructure, helping people, maintaining order, strengthening domestic wealth, and growing it. Instead, it is wasting it. And that hurts everyone, since the positive sum that interaction should occur is instead replaced with mere destruction. And so given this great importance of efficiency, along with the great importance of liberty itself, its violation is a great disgrace, and comes, frankly, as something that should be changed. It should not be violated. From this, we get a conclusion. Liberty must be protected throughout the world, by nearly any means. Naturally, trading liberty for no liberty, just so you can protect it somewhere else, is not a proper option. We cannot just say, yes, let's just censor our own people to protect liberty somewhere else. No, that isn't a good idea. But we can say, we will fight to the death to ensure that liberty is protected throughout the world. That is something we can absolutely do. And it's something that we should do, in my opinion. Now, of course, necessarily, there are actions we can take personally or within the state to protect it within our own countries. Every country, to some extent, has its limitations on negative liberty, and this can often be a problem. And so domestic reforms to defend liberty are advised. Just by eliminating the biggest threats to liberty, we absolutely make things better, but that's not all. It's one thing to change the bar by 15%, but even 1% can be useful. And it's important to remember certain things, even if you want to call them liberty, are not. You do not have the right to go onto someone else's property because they have the right to that property. Remember, your rights end where another's begin. And so, if a person has a right to something, you necessarily do not unless that person consents to you having it. You cannot say instead, actually, I feel like doing this, therefore I can supersede your rights. That's not how it works. And that is something that must always be remembered. Liberty is not just the ability to do. It's rather the inability to interfere with another. It's the non-aggression principle, as the libertarians would put it. But the idea carries true no matter what beliefs you subscribe to. And from this, certain things that people would argue are indeed liberty are not. Open borders is not liberty. Now, you can't stop someone from leaving your country. Yes, that is still something that a person would automatically be allowed to do per the nature of liberty, but entering a country is another story. Why? Because it's consent. Let's imagine the country like a house, shall we? Just for the sake of ease. Okay? A country has a house. It has a property. And it can choose who is allowed on it because it owns it. That is how the state works. And so, you're not allowed to step on the property without consent. Otherwise, you are violating the liberty of the person owning the house, in this case, the government. That just means that you do not have a right to walk on their house or into their house as you see fit. Instead, you must get consent from the state. If you do not get consent, then you are violating liberty and thus are necessarily an enemy to liberty. If you try to hold people in, same thing, because it's a matter of consent. A good way to imagine this is freedom of association. You are free to associate with whoever is willing to associate with you. You do not have the right to force anyone to associate or not to. You cannot say, you cannot hang out with this person, but you can say, I will not hang out with you. Make sense? And with the house example, it's pretty obvious. You can't force someone to stay on your house because they don't want to be in the house. But you can say, you cannot get in the house because I don't want you in. Simple as. And so the Crusade for Liberty is fighting for that. The securance of negative liberty for all peoples, irregardless of what others may say. That is what we should strive for. That is what we should push. An aggressive protection of liberty, and the securing of it for future generations. I call it a crusade, and for good reason. It should not stop until it's secured. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.